What the major method used in industry in the software field is to let all software undergo an activation process. Let me turn it into a pencil first. An activation process. An activation process meaning that once you install a software, it's not usable yet unless you go online, submit some information that is required by the software owner, and then the software owner will be granted the right to use it. And this process is called product activation. And some company would also limit how many softwares you can activate on how many machines you can let the software activate on that. Sometimes that would be 3, sometimes it would be 5 if this is a personal software. How can we tell the software this is personal or not personal? Normally it's defined by the license agreement. Any software board will actually come with this contract. This license agreement is a contract telling how many computers can use it and how to install it, what's the proper way using it, and what backup you can consider over it, things like that. Right. Violation of those contracts would means violations of your protection by the software company, so that if anything goes wrong in your computer, the software company may not be responsible or may not be able to help you due to the misuse of it. Right. So it's actually kind of like a protection between the two parties, the supplier and the user. Now, apart from our software can be stolen, our computer can be attacked as a whole, as we mentioned earlier in a very general way in the previous lecture. Just now we just covered a very specific area that software attack. We also had to know that we will have from time to time being attacked by people stealing information from us, and that would be what we call information theft here. Right. Information theft, in order to stop our information being stolen by an unauthorized person, or to protect our information being known by person that we not intended to let know, we probably need to use encryption method. That means even those people got our information, they don't know what it is. Encryption is a process like that. It will convert the data in an readable way to an unreadable way, so that unauthorized access will not be possible. The proper way doing that, of course, is encryption. And if you're sending a message to another person and you wish to encrypt it, public key encryption is a popular way. For example, the lady here on the left want to send a message to the man on the right. What she will do is she of course compose the message first, and then she will use the receiver public key to encrypt the message, so the message go from this look to that look here, which people can hardly know what it is. And then she will send this one to this man here. The man, upon receiving this encrypted code, he will use her private key to decrypt the message. Right. So the receiver's public key receiving it, and would use his or her private key to decrypt it. So the private key and the public key come together is a way to let that message go back to a normal readable form, enabling you to read the message, and then you can ensure the people reading it would a certain authorization attained first. Now this simple concept of public and public key encryption would go to digital signature. Digital signature is actually the encrypt code representing you, so you can make use of it to sign electronic agreement, and then that agreement would have legal binding. And we can also make use of this concept to generate a digital certificate, which we can make use of that to identify a particular person or training of a person or product is a real one. Of course, apart from making use of this encryption concept to protect training, protect messages, or protect conversation, we also would from time to time fear that when people transmitting something over a line or wireless environment, data will not be secure. That's why the concept of secure site came out, which is basically like that, right? Right. Whenever now that you find a website with HTTPS, you will then be accessing a secure website where the information before they are transmitted out, they would be encrypted first. Now this is then becomes a protection between you and the party in communication. A very popular way that we see this using is webmail. There, normally most webmail would now be using secure website concept. This one, secure website concept, to communicate between you and the email server, so that anyone, even they may get the message between you and the email server when you're communicating with it, with the secure web page implementation done there, messages will not be able to get known by the others very easily. Now, apart from software being stolen, information being stolen, it's also possible that hardware can be stolen. As we know, this is probably the most easily stolen, part in IT. So hardware theft, to define it, is quite simple. The equipment being stolen is what we meant by IT theft. Hang on, let me use an eraser to get this one erased first. Yep, and then go back to the pen. Right. So getting the equipment taken away would be what we call hardware theft. If someone takes your equipment and also destroy it, damage it, and that would call hardware vandalism. In order to protect your hardware, of course, we will, either that's going to be stealing of the hardware or damaging of the hardware. Those methods that we listed here can be very helpful, which include physical asset control that we seen earlier in chapter 3. That means you lock the doors, lock the windows. That's going to be important, and it always comes with alarm. So this is making use of a room to store them, and that room is highly secured. And of course, we can also make use of locks, which collectively known as physical secure devices, to stop your hardware being tampered. And then we can also make use of software, software to trace it in case it is lost. However, we know that hardware, instead of being stolen, would also have a possibility of it going malfunction. And in chapter 3, we know that to stop it, we have to make use of surge protector and UPS, so that it has stable current and it can be used longer and in a much more healthier way. However, it's also be possible that one day your hardware will get failed because of long-term use. Therefore, before that happens, it's always a good idea that we do some duplication of it, what usually we call backup, or we use some fraudulent computer, so that we can, in case all those hardware and software that we use go out of order, we still have a replacement. Therefore, in the coming slide, we're gonna be talking about Backup. Backup normally will be referred to as the ultimate safeguard of your stuff. You may get your things stolen, but if you have a backup, this replacement will come handy, and then you will have a lot less stress if you have a backup. So backup, as the term implies, is a duplication of the files that you are holding, or programs or media. And from time to time, we have two kind of backup. One is an on-site, one is an off-site one. If this is an off-site one, we normally put it in a cloud storage. Right. Here, the example here is an off-site one. Off-site backup is on the cloud. And that's why you see more and more companies in the world, they offer you with a very large space on the internet, persuading you to leave your personal stuff there so that it will be secure. And this will be a second-hand storeroom for you in case anything on your in your hand or in your possession goes wrong. Now, generally, when we do backup, it's better that we adopt a 3-generation policy, which means you have one copy, an older one, and then a less older one, and a newer one, or you have 3 copies altogether. Right? This 3-generation backup, alright, sometimes people keep in 3 version in 3 different places, or in an older, less older, and a newest version, would help you get the things you lost back very easily. However, apart from the 3-generation backup policy that normally people would adopt, they also have different kind or categories of backup that we can see later at the back here. Full, differential, incremental, selective, continuous data protection, and cloud, as we see here. Right. Let's take a look at them one by one. When we say this is full backup, as we see here, that means we copy all of the files on the computer onto the media. That could be the cloud. The good way for that using is it is fast, very fast. They know the file safe, but it also takes a long time for them to back up because this is a fast recovery. You don't have to think too much. Just copy all the files. That's it, and that's what we call a full backup. However, we want to shorten the time dealing with backup. If that's the case, you will be using differential backup, which you copies only the files that have changed since the last backup. So you just go for the changes and then you back it up. This is a fast method because that would have also cost the minimal storage. Now this would have the concept of grandparent, parent, and child concept there. So you may have many backups here, and you add them all up together, you will have the full version of yourself. Right? So this is the differential backup. Differential backup is also time consuming because the last full backup plus the differential backup add together would lengthen your backup time. Right? Instead of having only 1 copy of backup, you may have to kind of put the first version of backup and then the later change and then the later change. Right? So this is a possible drawback for differential backup. How about incremental? Incremental is like that. Copies only the file that have changed since the last full or incremental backup. It's quite similar to differential. Right? Differential is the change since the last full. So since the last full, there may be many steps, right? But incremental, since the last incremental is also included, so that would make the amount that you have to back up maybe lesser. Okay, so this one is even faster. That's why it says the faster backup method because you just have the latest chain backup. It requires also the minimal, the smallest storage to back up. Only most recent change is needed. Alright, so this is what we call incremental. However, if you want to put them all together, it will also be the most time consuming backup because you have to assemble the last full backup and incrementals, you have them all together. So it may not be very good. But for this one here, you just have to have the last full backup plus the changes. Right. How about selective? Selective backup means you choose the folders and files that's important to do the backup. Now this method is also a fast way and it's providing you with great flexibility. However, when you have to manage different files in all that manner, that will be quite a tedious things to do. So it may not be so manageable if you have too many files. That's the things that you have to consider. How about continuous data protection? That means all data is backed up whenever its change is made. So it's a very up to the minute or second backup. Whatever change you make, basically you back it up. So this sometimes be considered as a real-time backup. Real-time backup is good because whenever the system failed, you can always have the backup up to the minute or second before your system failed. So this is a very good recovery, very fast recovery of the system. But this, because of that kind of continuous monitoring of your computer and movement, and you have to do backup all at the same time, so that, and you expect it would be very expensive and also require a lot of storage and in extra to do it. So how about the last backup that sometimes people like to talk about? That would be cloud backup. If you want to make a distinction between the full and the continuous data protection that we see earlier, cloud can be seen as another type. So the one that you seen earlier can be referred to as on-site backup. That means you're operating the machine, you have another backup system or helping you. While for cloud backup, you basically have the machine in another area, not the one that you're operating. So the files are backed up to the distant server. We call it the cloud as anything changes. The cloud backup provides you with the hardware, so you don't have to worry about extra resources induced when you are working on a file. And the file can be retrieved from internet anywhere, so this is very convenient. However, whenever you have to have the cloud go back to your new device, you must have internet access. Otherwise, your computer cannot be backed up. So that could be a limitation when you're using cloud backup. But is, as said earlier, become more and more popular because machines comparative to a distant machine that holds by the other seems to be less stable, and that's why people are now turning more and more on the cloud backup, even though it have a potential. It has also another disadvantage of potential leakage of information due to the cloud owner, who may, due to some unethical practice, sell your information to some concerned parties outside. Now, apart from backup here on hardware, software that we just mentioned, we now also need to take a look at some of the possible security problem in wireless security. Wireless network access point become very popular worldwide, as you see in campus, in public restaurant, or in library. You probably would need go online from time to time, and this also provide chances for someone to connect to your computer using the wireless, especially they are free internet access, right? And your confidential data will be a risk. Okay, so the advice for you, therefore, to use wireless security, try to avoid the unsecure wireless access point, just like the one provided by the restaurant or by the public transport company, right? Because you never know how the security setup in the server provided by that wireless access point is. If they are not well defended by the firewall and antivirus software, it's very likely that anyone using that network will get infected. And once your computer get infected by a Trojan horse, you will have a very hectic time to get rid of it. Alright. So, and you may also be having some unnecessary suffering due to information leak because of that. As we become more and more dependent on computer, every day we use computer, we have to go online, we search for information. A proper way using it or guideline or moral becomes essential, and that comes the term technology ethics. So it's basically tells us about a proper way to use computer devices information system in such a way. And one of the key concern of information that we can get online is, or from the internet, is the security becomes less and less stable. Sometimes people will make up story just like the one here that, okay, there's no such thing as this kind of fruit existing in the world. It just combine an orange with an apple and looks like that. If you are not seeing all those things with a critical mind, it's very easy that you get deceived, right? And that's the kind of things that we worry about when we talk about technology ethics. And in order to safeguard people from releasing false information, one of the ways to counter it is we make the production of works, right, by people online with a proper recognition, and that would be the use of an intellectual property system. So anyone who quote the other's work, okay, if they violate it, we have a high chance knowing that that could be a false information. Intellectual properties make use of it is not really used for legal suing or legal action from time to time, which is actually a kind of like a benchmark providing all of us to know whether some information is trustable or not. Just like the one that we see earlier, if we have seen no IP for this particular fruit, we are much easier to conclude that that is actually a make-up story, and then we have a better grounding to let ourselves not believing in it. So intellectual property therefore provide us with a very good usage of differentiating what is real and what is not real, because anything that's real, supposedly they would have a unique and original works recognition, and then we can know, okay, that who's producing it, and anyone who produces it therefore would have a legal responsibility or reliability to prove this is right or not right. Otherwise they would have a credibility problem, right, incurred. Intellectual property rights, normally it's about the creators, it's for the creator. It not only helping us to tell whether a particular piece of work information is real or is a credit one, it's also granting the credit to those who produce it. This could be very encouraging for people who make innovative work. Copyright protects tangible expression, and therefore we see that as we see more and more people producing some very good innovative pieces of information or collection of information or performance on the network or internet, digital rights management becomes a very popular strategy that designed to prevent any illegal distribution of that, which is particularly severe in Asia. Well, if we be able to protect digital rights online, people would have more initiative, or they would be more willing to produce online production with a much sincere heart, and therefore this is actually for the well-being of the whole internet sharing environment. And because of that thinking in mind, we see that there will be something called code of conduct being produced, which is actually some operation guideline for the moral in computer or we name it earlier technology ethics. The operation guideline, if you take a look at example in the IT, it can look something like that. Many of them are actually quite reasonable, even though that is not happening in the cyber world. For example, we have to make use of the principle of not harming the others, right? Not muddling with others' files. That means not seeing the others' private information. That's no matter you are working in the cyber world or in the real world, we basically should not do it. And use technology with the only purpose for the that is authorized, but not other unauthorized process. That means use a proper just based on the proper weight of the IT use, we use it that way. And not stealing, not false witnessing, alright? That's something also very reasonable, even in the real world. Not copying illegally, that's makes sense. Not use resources without authorization. Even in the real world, we have to ask people before we use their stuff. Not use as our own, so no plagiarism as we see earlier. Alright, so this concept is not new in the IT field. As you see here, is actually something just like the real properties that we also use there. And consider social impact of something that you design. So we have to really know that whenever we make something out in a cyber world or in the real world, will inevitably impact the others. Will that impacts be causing the others a big trouble? If this is the case, we really have to think twice. Right? And employees also always use technology in a way that demonstrates consideration. Right? So consideration and respect still the trump card, right? In defining the proper code of conduct in the IT. And that also brings us to a topic that we mentioned only in chapter 1, green computing, because that's also about the proper use of IT. When we say about green computing, of course, it means electricity. We try to use less as possible ways. We try to reduce it as much as possible so that we can get along with the environment in a much nicer manner. Conserving energy is a proper way doing that, because if we use less energy, probably our environment would get less warmer, and overall people in the world would be benefit. And that's why try to see if you can stick to that conserve energy principle by adopting using some of the energy saving device, and also try to reduce waste produced out of computer by using more paperless method, or more recycle method, alright? And or even when you need to communicate, rather than using unnecessary paper, we communicate with the others using WhatsApp or Telegram, or we try to save people resources by having more video conferencing or activities rather than requiring people to meet on a particular place, which would be resources consuming, resources intensive, and that would be not very environmental friendly. Right. So those are all the ideas that we can see in the code of in the code of conduct for IT. And to uphold information privacy, therefore we also need to know about it. Information privacy is actually born out of intellectual property, is to highlight the rights of individual. It's just kind of the rights of individual, alright, to deny restriction of correction. So we now try to make our sharing on the internet or network much safer. Therefore, we have to find some way to restrict people from collecting them, because collecting them from time to time would be actually a disturbance to our own sense of security, and therefore it also born the idea of information privacy. Now, huge database online is something that we always work on, and they from time to time should have a very good safeguard method in order to protect our information privacy. And we know that website is collecting information from us from time to time, and even someone or even our employers is always doing some monitoring of our computer usage. So in information privacy there, we're going to discuss something about them. And first of all, we have to have an idea of how to safeguard our personal information first, and therefore I'll introduce you with this page here, which talk about briefly, which talk about how to safeguard, how to protect our information. One way to do it is not only necessary information you filled online, alright, and no preprint of your personal information. That's a good practice, even it's not online. Okay. have an unpublished telephone so you can safeguard against people who try to extract information on you. And also, if you are a caller, you see, find way to block your number from displaying. So how to block your number from displaying when you are calling people? In Hong Kong, we normally dial 133, right? I think it's 133 or 1333. You can check it out from the phone company, and then you'll be able to call someone with unknown caller, right? Now that's a way to protect your phone, because if your phone is kind of known to all people in the world, it's gonna be quite inconvenient that you cannot tell whether the person finding you is a real person or is a fake one, and then you will have a high chance of information privacy being leaked out. And normally, not writing our personal information on the receipt and ask the merchant not exposing our information to the outside world. Maybe you can use PayPal. Alright, that's, even though PayPal is a very bad mechanism right now that a lot of people kind of don't like it, still it has a very good mechanism that protect people information from leaking out to the merchants. Alright, so you can think about using a third-party payment method. Alright, PayPal could be considered, I would say. And purchase something with cash is possible. I know that right now in COVID-19 influence, a lot of people would like to order things from the internet. However, using credit or checks over the internet is a very easy way for your information being exposed. You should also be thinking, okay, sometimes if the things can be bought, okay, face to face in a shop, maybe that's a better idea that you can pay or buy things in this way, that your information will not be easily leaked out over the internet, right? Although a lot of people would think the convenience issue is much more important, still, when you know that your personal information being exposed to the outside world will cause you a very big disturbance, maybe you have to really kind of make a balance over it. And then stop shopping club or buy a card. Well, if we use a lot of those cards, of course information would also be very easily leaked out, because those cards owner would sell the information to the outside world. So this is a problem. And view or download copy associated with all those social media. So make sure you note about the terms of all the social media that's sharing your information out, because they may be exposing your information to the outside world. And if possible, see if you can disable all the history keeping of those websites. Right? Even though they may be really keeping your website, but disabling it explicitly is an important way for you to do it. And if the company that let you do social media activities that claim that you're disabled of those information, will not let your information be recorded, but later found recorded, they would have the legal responsibility. So try to get notes of the terms in those social media. It's a good way of protecting yourself and your personal information online. And always ask the merchant that you have a choice not to be collected in personal information. I think right now is also one of the rules in Hong Kong, alright, laws in Hong Kong, that the receiver information always has the right of not being collected, right? And you can have a right to remove from the mailing list. Okay, you can also obtain credit report from agents and correct any errors. Right, your debt information, your money borrow information actually accessible over the network. Try to take a look at those reports also is right or wrong about you, because that would affect your further credit application, and therefore we have a responsibility of checking it on a regular basis. And then you also try to get contact with the government medical or hygienic department about your medical records, see whether they're keeping it right, and not letting people to get it in a free manner. And you have also to limit information you provide on the web, alright, not autofill a lot of things, right? A lot of people, because of the convenience issue, that they autofilled every boxes. However, especially password. However, if your computer get hacked, those kind of information will leak to the outside world. And also, we have to try to control cookies. We're going to talk more about cookies later, but the cookies is also a way that your activities online will be exposed to the outside world. So it's a good habit that whenever you browse, you have to clear the browser history, right? Many browsers allow you to do it. When you close a browser, everything you input there basically before will be erased, and then you will not have a client copy that will be collectible by the server. So let's set up a free email account. Use this email account for most. So instead of using your actual email account from the company, it's a good idea that sometimes if people want to contact you, they contact from a free email account from the outside world, so you can preserve your own identity in a much secure manner. And also turn off the sharing in your computer is a good way of letting information leak out unnecessary. It's a good way to stop information leak out unnecessary. And install a personal firewall. I think that's gonna be a default for most systems right now in Windows. So keep it like that, or even strengthen it. That's my advice on you. And sign up email filtering. So if your ISP have an email filtering service, do use it, because we always have a lot of emails on the internet kind of spoofing us to provide information. So if you can kind of extract all those emails, dump them, that would be very good for you to safeguard your information being leaked out. And also report any spams to your ISP or IT department as soon as possible. And when you surf the web, alright, use it in a surf the web using it in a no name, alright, anonymous, mean no name way, right, so that you can do your private browsing over there, and that can preserve your personal information being, or personal data being exposed to the outside person. And that's why in some companies, just like the Toys R Us here, whenever they require you or require an employee to fill in anything, the form there, they have a choice here letting you to kind of not safeguarding your personal information, just like that. Alright, so this is an example here. Whether you register a car, going to enter something in the database, there should always be a choice, alright, about the preference that you have. Right. Now, cookies, as you've seen earlier, in protecting your own personal information, cookie is something that causing a nuisance from time to time, because it's a small text file that the server store on your computer, recording your activities like your username, password, shopping information, where you visit, and it can also be a very troublesome file that would cause a lot of the advertisements showed up in your computer, or but the reason why you're keeping cookie is also there is any computer that comes with cookie, normally they would be much easily personalizable. That means you go for a particular category of product on a regular basis, and you don't have to search and find it all over again when you do the browsing next time. So that cookie is actually helping you to enjoy this convenience. The cookie working is like that. Whenever you have the cookie in the computer, when you turn on to the website, that cookies will go to the server, and the server will find you the last recorded behavior, and then you'll find the convenience over there. Alright. However, in that kind of communication over the internet, your information will also be leaked out to the outside world, and that's the issue that a lot of people concern now. With information leak out, of course, that will not be good. And from time to time, we also see that there would be someone who try to mimic themselves as official information and collect information from you, right? And then even they provide malicious program over there if you click on them, right? So those are the spoofing example that we see happening, detrimenting your information privacy. They may also be in the form of a spyware or adware, which sometimes cause you a nuisance or popping up and popping under the windows. On the other hand, they would be secretly collecting information from you on spyware. So all those things, if found on your computer, must be gathered up using the antivirus software that install on your computer, so that your information privacy can be upheld. And social engineering is another concern that we have to know. Social engineering means some people gain access and offer access to you, not by asking you, but by your behavior. So by taking advantage of your behavior, trusting the human nature of the victims and your naivety. So let's take a look at a social engineering problem, or we try to understand it more. Social engineering. So what is social engineering? Let's take a look at that in detail.
When you hear the term social engineering, this is the security industry's way of referring to a con or a scam technique. It's basically the art of gaining access to buildings, systems, or data by exploiting human psychology rather than breaking in or using technical hacking techniques. Famous hacker Kevin Mitnick helped popularize the term social engineering in the 1990s, although the idea and many of the techniques have been around as long as there have been scam artists. But how does a social engineer work? Here are some examples. A social engineer might lurk near a secure doorway with several boxes and pretend they can't reach their access card or key to get in. They'll ask, "Can you hold the door for me?" And an unsuspecting office worker will let them in. The worker never realizes they've just given a criminal access to their company's office. On the phone, a social engineer calls employees and pretends to be the IT help desk, trying to trick workers into giving them their password. Social engineering is dangerous to corporate and personal data because once a data thief has gained access, there's no telling what he'll do with it. So how can you avoid becoming a victim of social engineering? First, be aware. Awareness of the types of ploys these criminals use is your #1 defense. Second, look around. Pause and ask questions before doing anything. If something doesn't look or sound right, chances are you're being played by a social engineer.
Alright, that basically what we have to know about social engineering here, and therefore we have to be very much aware of it. Okay, and once we find it, we have to report it. Right, and we found that this is basically quite hard to be screened out. Alright, because they normally will be doing some of the decent behavior, or what we say is normal behavior on the net. So if you can be aware of those things, probably people can take less advantage over you. Alright, that's social engineering. Now, the concern of privacy, as we mentioned in a couple of pages that we see earlier, right, is very serious. So it's also lead to some countries, just like the US, we have a very well thought set of laws safeguarding this issue. Sometimes they safeguard children, right? They also safeguard software and financial activities, as you see here, health activities, freedom of information, right? People freedoms, public access, right? Privacy access, things like that. Now, those kind of laws been quite well developed in the US, and in Hong Kong is also kind of catching up based on this privacy concern laws as a model there for them to kind of modify based on the local situation. Now, content filtering is one way that we can safeguard our information privacy, and it's normally used for kids browsing website. The idea of content filtering is we just kind of select which kind of things we don't want from the browser, so when it's accidentally got hit on us, it will not be affecting us. And we can specify which website or which type of website is not good, and we want to block it, things like that. If you have an idea, something like that, that's actually content or web filtering. do use it. Alright, as you find some of the website that you think is very suspicious, because that can then safeguard you from being exploited by information privacy. Now, the final concern that we have to take a look at today in this chapter is employee monitoring. Employee monitoring is a very controversial issue that we see that user computer devices, as you see here by the user, right, can from time to time be monitored by employers using some programs. And it's also legal. So that means employers really will take a look at what employees doing, right? And employees really sometimes would have their personal information exposed in the web view, and if employers is kind of monitoring them, they would also be having an information privacy issue or leaking from the employees to the employers. Would it be a good issue or not? So we have to think about that very, very seriously. It can be good and bad, actually. So let's take a look at this video, and then let's try to explore this a little bit further, right? Should you be monitored or not, right? By your employer. Or the topic here is, should you monitor your employees, right? Let's take a look.
Research by the ePolicy Institute in Columbus, Ohio, revealed that 2/3 of companies monitor their employees, and half of them have fired employees due to their behavior on email and the web. Find out the pros and cons to monitoring your employees' activities online next on IT Done Right.
Welcome to this episode of IT Done Right with your host, Jeannie DeWitt.
When it comes to monitoring your employees online, there are potential positives and negatives for your company. To help, we've come up with a list of pros and cons and some tips for implementation. So first, why should you consider monitoring your employees? One of the biggest reasons is to ensure that you have a harassment-free workplace and that staff are complying with policies and not downloading illegal programs or spending time on unauthorized websites. So what are the cons? Well, the biggest con is usually productivity loss, because monitoring can kill employee morale if not rolled out correctly. So if you decide to monitor your employees, here are a few tips you should follow. Number 1, create written policies. When you decide to monitor, ask yourself, are you doing it for security purposes or to make sure employees are not wasting time? Whatever the reason, it's smart to balance your policies with expectations of your employees. Set guidelines for acceptable use of email, social media, web surfing, instant messaging, and downloading software and apps. Number 2, tell your employees. It's important to inform your employees. If they find out you're doing it without their knowledge, you could create resentment among them or even face legal issues. Explain why you're doing it and the risks your business faces. Reassure them you're not doing it to spy on their personal life, but only attempting to create a compliant and law-abiding workplace. Number 3, get the right technology tools. Look for technology that will alert you to potential problems so you don't have to weed through information that's not important. You may also want to consider technology that can block certain content and websites. Now, whether or not to monitor your employees can be a tricky decision, but if implemented correctly, could benefit your business by making it more secure and even more productive. For more information about how to set up your business to monitor employees' online activities, please contact me. And as always, I hope you learned something today, and I look forward to seeing you on my next show.
Thank you for watching.
So that's very, very brief, very good, concise information, right, telling you about employee monitoring. Right, we know that interfering people's privacy is not a good idea. However, in a business context, in a production context, really that the employers would also concern about fairness and productivity. Right, so adopting what the lady just mentioned in the video clips, all right, could promote a positive image about, all right, employee monitoring, which would ultimately bring a much more healthy workplace, all right, rather than targeting a specific information or minor details, exposing minor details of employees, right, causing unnecessary embarrassment, right? And that's basically what these employee monitoring have to really follow. And I hope you have a better idea about that then. And that sums up for all we have to talk about in chapter 5, right? In this chapter, we briefly talk about digital securities. As you remember in the previous lecture, we introduced who doing the bad things, and we introduced different kind of bad behavior and safeguard, and how we're going to deal with each of them one by one. And then ultimately we introduce you with backup issues, and then we wraps it up with ethical issues. And I hope that you learn about this and really think about it, and I hope this chapter will be of long-term use to you in the long run. All right, thanks for your attention so far in this course. Hope you have a good time on that. Goodbye.